Agradecemos a Hannah, Rose y Lucy sus ilustraciones sobre adopción, subrogación y tráfico humano. Estamos corridos en el tiempo 30 minutos, así es de que tenemos 5 minutos para 2, 3 intervenciones cortas. Tienen el uso de la palabra los que quieran intervenir. Creo que no hay traducción. Por favor, nos colaboran con la traducción. Hola. Hola. Sí. Ya decíamos que gracias a Hannah, Ross y Lucy por sus aportes sobre los temas de adopción y subrogación respecto del tráfico humano. Estamos corridos 30 minutos en el tiempo, luego vamos a tener unos 5 minutos para 2, 3 intervenciones y pasaremos a la pausa para café. Si alguien desea preguntar o intervenir sobre los temas explicados por las 3 compañeras con relación a lo que sucede en estos temas en Kenia, pues levanten el uso de la palabra para poder identificar y dar el uso de la palabra. Levanten la mano, por favor. ¿No hay intervenciones? Bueno, vamos. Sí, tienes el uso de la palabra.
My question goes to Rose. She said a lot about what the judiciary is doing in terms of adjudicating human trafficking cases. But what I know in Africa is we've had problems with actually getting statistics on cases, human trafficking cases that have gone through the courts. And as we heard from our Nigerian colleagues, most of the cases are thrown out of court because of poor investigations and poor prosecutions. So I wanted to find out from Rose as a judge in Kenya, how has been the situation in Kenya? Have there been much done in the area of prosecutions and adjudications of human trafficking cases? Do we also have the same problems of poor investigations and prosecutions, or you think the Kenyan law enforcement and DPP are doing a good job? I say so because after all what you said, you went on to say there still needs to be a lot of training for the judiciary in the area of human trafficking cases. So what exactly is the situation in Kenya? Is it a success story or there are challenges? Thank you.
Ross, sobre el punto específico.
Thank you, Christina. Mine was related to adoption, and I say there's still a lot that needs to be done to really find out whether there's human trafficking through the adoption cases that we have. But from the presentation of my two sisters in the lower bench, what I heard them say is that although the cases come to court, most of them have acquitted those persons because of lack of evidence or the manner in which the cases have been prosecuted. Where I am right now, in Kisii, which is out of Nairobi, I've only dealt with one appeal on human trafficking, and I upheld that conviction. The lady was given 30 years. This is a lady who was left with a child by her mother-in-law. The child belonged to her co-wife, married to another brother in the same home. She was last seen with that child going to the market. The child never came back. So when it came up, I upheld the decision. It's a decision that I hope will go to the Court of Appeal because I used my own other language to see that that conviction was actually sustained. I looked at the evidence and I was satisfied that the magistrate actually did a good judgment on it. So I just upheld that conviction. That is the one that I have dealt with in the area where I am. But before I went where I was, we dealt mostly with inter-country adoptions as it was. But as I was saying, the reports come to us, and unless you put your foot down and query some of the reports that are given to us. For instance, if they say that there was consent obtained, how was that consent obtained? And if you dig further, sometimes you find that maybe a child was taken from a relative because of an incest case. When you insist on having the alleged parent come to court or the young girl come to court, there's always that reluctancy. Now, the Act does give us powers as courts to give some conditions when it comes to that adoption. So what we did is that we used to sit as a department and kind of compare the kind of cases we had in adoption matters. And we would agree on the way forward, because if they found that one judge has a weak link, they would want to transfer their matters to that court. So that is how we dealt with. But from their papers, really, there's still lack of investigations, and that's why people are going out at the lower court before they, I mean, the ones who have been convicted, I think most of the higher courts have, if the evidence is sufficient, let them stay in jail where they are.
¿Tienes el uso de la palabra?
Yes, I want to add on that. Judge has said on why most of the cases actually come to the lower court. It is because some of them are actually hidden. It's not like adoption per se. They have flouted the laws. I have some of the cases where children have been given away from the children's homes. But then the circumstances and all that, they come under the penal laws. But then the question in the back of my mind, why was this child being given away without proper procedures being followed? And how did this happen? I had one of the cases which are concluded. And this lady had been charged with stealing of children. The lady went to the hospital, she gave birth, and then she was told that the baby died. Asked to be shown the baby, and said, you know what, you are in Nairobi and you can't be able to afford the money to pay for the burial site, the cemetery, and you can't be able to transport the child to your rural home and all that. So didn't even see the child, and apparently it was a setup, and they ended up being arrested. DNAs were conducted. There's a child who was rescued. DNAs were conducted. The child's owner could not be found. The child is still in a children's home, ended up being adopted. This one did not find her child. There's even no dead child that was ever recovered. She lost the baby, and that was it. And then the case proceeded. It was a setup for her to actually cut that link of the clinics and the hospitals where this child are going to be born and then being sold out to whoever. But then what happened is that the evidence was actually, it was frustrated by the investigative agencies. The case collapsed. So meaning the perpetrator is actually out there. Wherever, if it's the clinic, I don't know whether it's still operating or what is happening. So meaning the ring still continues. Thank you.
Es la última intervención y cerramos ya la primera ronda. ¿Tienes el uso de la palabra, Cristina?
Thank you for the chance also, and also just to add a little bit on what my two colleagues have added is that I believe Kenya, we are still working on the scenario, and I can't say that we're a complete success, but we're there. In terms of looking at the number of cases that we're having now coming up from what used to be immigration cases to now what is turning out to be cases charged under the Counter-Trafficking in Persons Act. A lot of these victims used to be charged with being illegally present in Kenya. But then now when we flipped and we looked at the bigger picture through the various trainings that we've had through organizations like Heart Kenya and Equality Now, we've been able now to see that we were charging the wrong people, and now we need to go after the very people who are bringing these people in Kenya. Maybe you'd find that you're brought from countries like Botswana, Burundi, on the rules that you're coming to Kenya for employment, or you're passing through Kenya for employment to other countries. So through the trainings and through our court users committees, as Lady Justice Okwengu had said, our stakeholders are now more able to identify the victims of human trafficking and be able now to go after the traffickers themselves. Some of these victims are able now to tell us where they were being housed, and then now we can be able even to track the houses that where they were staying and the persons who are paying rent in that particular house. So now we're really trying, together with the Asset Recovery Unit, to try and see what further can we do, what other steps can we do. So we are not yet there, but at least we're making some strides, and maybe by the time we share again in such a forum, we'll also share other strides that we have made. Thank you.
Gracias, no vamos a dar más intervenciones, vamos a dar la pausa para café, un aplauso para todas las intervinientes. Les rogamos que solo sean 10 minutos para poder cumplir con el horario. Pausa para café.